I heard that this is going to be the gacha game by Netease, but I have no idea if it is actually a gacha or not. So we'll find out in this video, right? Is it actually a gacha?
After half a dozen hours in the earliest moments of the upcoming pirate RPG Sea of Remnants, I was left with tons of questions about how this one will ultimately turn out. Whether it was the currently bare-bones turn-based combat system, the convoluted...
Oh, so it's a turn-based. Turn-based, okay. So at least it's going to... So it's a pirate game with turn-based, and it seems like it's roguelike as well.
Labyrinth of vendors and upgrade paths that reminded me a bit of an MMO. Or the story and dialogue that were sometimes difficult to follow given this early build's lack of English voice acting or reliable subtitles.
Lack of English voice acting, guys. Guys, you guys know how it is, right? Everybody loves English voice acting. If nobody loves English voice acting, why is this person saying the lack of English voice acting? Think about it, right? Think about it.
But one thing that was never in doubt throughout all of that is just how much this colorful, over-the-top adventure is already absolutely dripping with style. It's so unbelievably hard to look away from, it made me eager to see more in spite of those rough edges. Seriously, the cartoonish characters, exaggerated and often hilarious animations, and gorgeous menus are some of the coolest I've seen since Persona 5. And even when I didn't understand everything that was happening, I often couldn't help but smile ear to ear. The version I played is so early and unfinished, it's still pretty hard to tell if this will deliver in plenty of other areas, from gameplay to technical stability. But there's plenty of time before the unspecific 2026 launch window to iron all that out. And it already has so much unique charm that I'm officially adding this one to my list of games to follow closely.
Now the thing is, like, the art style looks really good though, right? The art style is like Sea of Thieves, I'm not sure, I never played that. But this art style is like really unique. If it comes as a gacha, I think this is going to have a... It will basically carve a niche audience, I think.
That I'm officially adding this one to my list of games to follow closely. Before I get into what I liked and didn't like in my time with Sea of Remnants, it's worth mentioning again that what I played appeared to be an extremely early build that was quite unfinished and prone to all sorts of bugs and rocky technical performance.
Bugs, right?
I'm used to playing unfinished products months and sometimes years before they see the light of day, but even by that measure, this one felt especially under construction. Menus and dialogue were riddled with placeholder text, crashes and bugs were quite frequent, and the entire thing hadn't been optimized for non-Mandarin speakers like myself, which often left things lost in translation. For all of these reasons and more, it was more than a little hard to tell how things will pan out, both from a technical...
So no wonder he cannot understand, right? So I think that's how it is.
...perspective and where gameplay is concerned, since many ideas were clearly extremely unbaked. Keep that in mind as you watch this video. What I do know about Sea of Remnants is that it's playing in a lot of the same space as Sea of Thieves, with open-world high seas to explore as a pirate crew and islands to visit filled with loot waiting to be plundered.
But is it...
But it also distinguishes itself with unexpected elements, like the turn-based combat that happens when you're ashore, or the RPG MMO mechanics that accompany it, to the point where I'm not even sure what odd blend of genres the final product is shooting for.
This is the first
and every 30 minutes came with another surprise that added to that confusion, like how late in the demo I learned there were hundreds of recruitable companions I could take with me on voyages, and
it is gacha. There, confirm, right? 100 recruitable characters. So it is going to be a gacha game.
Build bonds with. And this is all without having been able to see any of the planned multiplayer components in action, as this will all apparently be taking place in an online world where you can interact with other pirate captains. Unfortunately, a lot of the ideas Sea of Remnants threw at me were pretty hard to get a sense for in this build, like the turn-based combat where my Buccaneer crew and I crossed swords and blunderbusses with rival scallywags and local fauna. While beautifully animated, the bits I played were also extremely oversimplified, either due to the section I played being pretty early on in the adventure, or just because it was quite clearly still a work in progress.
Ooh, there's a boss?
As a big fan of turn-based battles, I'm hopeful they can flesh out some of the mechanics here to reach the heights of some of my recent favorites like Clair Obscur Expedition 33 or Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. But for now, it mostly reminded me of a very stripped-down version of Persona 5.
Persona 5.
The good news is that no matter how unfinished any aspect of Sea of Remnants was, it was consistently and without exception one of the most interesting games I've played in a long time. The humanoid characters, all of which are puppets for some reason,
if it's gacha,
have a
it's going
ton
to be
of
hard
personality
to
despite their wooden faces, and their exaggerated animations
a lot of other
really cracked
player.
me up. And despite having Sea of Thieves pirate vibes, I rarely felt like I knew what was going to happen next. Like how after beating a giant 8 boss on an island and getting back on my boat to go home, I suddenly found myself under attack by that same monkey out for revenge, who is now captaining his own vessel.
At least you got some interesting pirates.
Then, even though I sent him to Davy Jones's locker, my ship was sunk moments later anyway in the most silly cutscene imaginable. I still feel like I don't really understand what it will feel like to play the final product, as it swings so wildly between juggling an inventory of loot, blasting cannons on a boat, and choosing between very confusing dialogue.
So what you do in the final product is you reroll. That's just how it is, right? He might not be aware of this, but I'm the gacha expert, right? You just reroll. Reroll for meta characters. You don't have to be confused about what you do in the final product. You play the tutorial, you reach the point where you do the gacha pulls, you reroll.
Options with various party members. Right? But even though playing through that confusion was often a little unintuitive, I certainly can't say it wasn't interesting. Quite the opposite.
Quite the opposite.
It was also really nice to see such a unique setting, because although there's a lot of typical piracy shenanigans you might expect, there were also really strange concepts peppered throughout that kept me on my toes. Like how my journey started out with me finding the moon buried beneath the sea, or how the marionette characters apparently lose their memory whenever they're destroyed on an adventure, but always find themselves back inside the main island of Utopia to begin again. There's also a really distinct punk vibe throughout the entire world, as everything is covered with graffiti, and many of the characters act like reckless teenagers who cut class to cosplay as mischievous pirates. The big question with Sea of Remnants is if its unmistakably cool presentation and interesting hodgepodge of ideas can actually come together into something coherent, and I truly feel no closer to answering that after more than 6 hours with it.
6 hours.
For now, it's definitely interesting and distinctive enough for me to anxiously wait to see more, but we'll likely need to wait a fair bit longer before we can get a better feel for how it's shaping up, especially when it comes to technical performance and the online aspects that were completely absent from this build. I can definitely see the beginnings of a vision here,
so far I only see him showing 2 characters.
Killer art style play well with the over-the-top ship combat and slower, more tactical turn-based battles on foot to create something really special. Plus, we can always use more pirate fantasy in our lives, and I can already tell that this goofy take on the genre will bring a very fresh perspective. Granted, I have no idea how they'll make online multiplayer, where friends would presumably come along for the ride, work with the turn-based combat and NPC party members. But hey, if they manage to pull it off, it sounds like it'd be awesome. And if they don't, at least it'll be something unique.
I wonder how many members you can use, right? Should be at least 4.
For more, check out our recent previews of Borderlands 4 and Wuchang
so we'll have to
Feathers.
Wait
and
more
for everything
to
else,
get more
keep
news
sailing the high
until
seas
they do like
with IGN.
Until they do something. Wait, is that the gacha animation? No, it's an ultimate animation. So we gotta see like an actual like open or closed beta, right? So that's just how it is. This game might be more interesting if you're a single player. Well, it's hard to say, right? How do you know it's more interesting? You haven't played it yet. Like you gotta try it out, right? It's just what you think, but there's always going to be a vision that the developer will have. We'll need to see how it is, right? There's already a lot of single player turn-based games. There's going to be that aspect. It's hard to see. Hard to say for sure, right? They gotta look at the execution and stuff. But yeah, I'll definitely give it a shot when it comes out.